Hello YouTubers and fans of anime, this is Dragon Videos and I'm presenting my first ever movie review. This one I'm particularly excited because I've been a long-time fan of Pokemon and I was very glad of how the movie turned out. If some of you know what I'm talking about, then I won't have to guess. But I decided to try to do this movie anyway since I still have it fresh in my mind. I'm talking about Detective Pikachu. This has been based off of a game in the 3DS, and it's about Harry Goodman, a detective that went missing while trying to solve a case, and his son Tim Goodman has to go and try to find him. For some odd reason, he can understand Harry's Pikachu, and along the way, they uncovered a mysterious plot that involves raging Pokemon, an underground fighting group, and the mysterious Mewtwo. Along with colorful characters in Pokemon, you gotta love it. Reynolds was a great voice for Pikachu. Some of you might know him as the guy who played as Deadpool. The scenery of the Pokemon world is amazing. The shots always bring the Pokemon to life, practically giving us that sense that we wanted that world to exist here. It's practically a Pokemon fan's dream. We've had Rhyme City, Tim's hometown, and a lab that led into a forest. Even the Pokemon are amazing, the way they are just set up in a 3GI dimension where they look like our traditional Pokemon that we've seen in cards, video games, even in the manga and anime. It's so much better, and they don't overdo the animation up to the point where it kind of looks like CGI garbage, such as this fella from the Sci-Fi Channel. My advice, don't watch it. Even the Charizard's texture, it really brings out that it's scaly, like a real reptile. Even Mewtwo really was a surprising character that brought us back to the first Pokemon movie, as well as giving us some surprising factors that we never thought would be possible. So the story begins with Tim meeting up with the Cubone, which he insults. Word to the wise, don't insult wild Pokemon. He reluctantly tries to catch it from his friend's advice, and I loved how they did an indication of when you catch a Pokemon or not in a Pokeball. When it's green, you got it. If it's yellow, as Tim's friends like to put it, run! It was a pretty funny line. Later on, he gets a call saying that his father is missing, and because of that, he had to go to Rhyme City, a place where Pokemon and people exist. No Pokeballs, no Pokemon fights. In some ways, it does make sense about the non-Pokemon violence, mostly because if some of you have seen the anime, the Pokemon can get physically, if not emotionally, abused. Take Ash's fire Pokemon, for instance. The majority of them always wind up being abused in some horrible way. So, Tim arrives to Rhyme City as a way of trying to say goodbye to his dad after receiving the call, but then later finds the R serum, nearly gets attacked by a rabid Apom, and also meets the Pikachu. To this day, I love the line of, "Okay, you may not understand me, but put the stapler down or I will electrocute you." That was the best line ever, as well as Tim accidentally dropping his stapler in the process. So basically, since people are hearing Pika Pika, Tim has to rely on Detective Pikachu, and they speculate of how Harry was really missing instead of dead as the police have claimed. So they go see Mr. Mime. My least favorite part in the movie about that was also when he tried to escape. It's like, really, Mr. Mime? You can't bother to move for real and just mime stuff? I get it's for humor, but sometimes I felt like Mr. Mime could have put up. Tim and Pikachu show really good chemistry throughout the majority of the movie. Pikachu being the humor as well as sometimes the heart that Tim needs, especially when Tim was feeling very bad about being away from his father after the mother died, and he felt like Pokemon were to blame, which later in the movie was a huge pot full of irony, as well as what happened later between Harry and Tim. Ah! Ditto! I kid you not. What happened with Ditto was terrifying. Sure, he was cute now, but try imagining a human person in real life carrying Ditto eyes. Tell me, is that cute? Is it? Is it? I think not. In my personal opinion, Howard Clifford was an effective Pokemon villain, as well as a good red herring. He seemed like a nice guy, always willing to help Tim and Pikachu get to the truth, but in reality he was planning to use Mewtwo as a way of gaining immortality. It was hinted in his quote, "Evolution is the better version of themselves," which is what he refers to as Pokemon, so in some way he wanted a better version of himself. He had a degenerative disease, so basically he was a man that had nothing to lose out of all of this madness. So, yeah, it would make sense, considering that in the manga that villains have also done some crazy wackadoo jobs. So, there you have that. For some of you who may not be understanding that concept, evolution is sort of like a special computer program. You want a specific software that helps you with your computer, whether it's to protect it from bugs or just to have efficient memory processing. That's basically genetics in a nutshell. If you want for instance, a Pikachu that could give off electricity, you need to modify the genetic codes in order to do that. Or if you want a human with immunity to, say, salmonella, then you would need a genetic code that would help protect you from that. The fight between Pikachu and Mewtwo was amazing. It was something that I think many Pokemon fans have wanted for a long time or even wondered about. I also liked how the plot twist in Mewtwo ended with what had happened to Harry and how Mewtwo rewarded him for saving him. And in some ways, that portion of the plot makes total sense. In the game, they didn't explain too much about how Pikachu talked to Tim and how they understand, but after what we've seen with the R serum and how Tim inhaled it, in some ways it showed of how Harry was able to contact him from, I wouldn't say from the ether or some sort of beyond, but I think it was some sort of conscious plane that can still be a little hard to explain at times. So overall, Detective Pikachu really was a great movie that I would highly recommend watching. The Pokemon animation is great. They look like they really belong in reality. They are something that we are probably wanting for quite some time. I also love the heart of it. It wasn't like super mushy sentimental, but it was put in a way where it feels realistic. Like you can relate to Tim and Harry and Pikachu in a lot of ways. The humor that Ryan Reynolds puts in is very appropriate. It has a good amount of punchlines where the humor seems to be at the right place and at the right time. Even I like of how Tim's evolution went from a very reluctant young man who would rather go behind a desk than face battles, and becomes this person who not only forgives his father, but becomes a better version of himself, which is an internal evolution of its own. So overall, I do like of how Detective Pikachu went. I love of how the plot was put together. It was very thought out, and it was put in a way where we would never expect this sort of character or this sort of evolution. And it brings us a lot of nostalgia for longtime fans. I really hope that you've enjoyed this video, and I hope to hear from you again soon. Farewell!